Welcome to season 12 of the Parenting Aces podcast, a proud member of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and this week we have Todd Widom back with us, and I'm super excited to share our conversation with you. We recorded this conversation right before the final weekend of the US Open in 2023. And actually, he and I were both watching the Coco Gauff semifinal match while we were talking. So just to put things in perspective for you, we are going to chat about all things junior development, what's going on in the US with American players finding spots on top college tennis teams, and what's going on with our American professionals having so much success this year. So I think you're going to enjoy this one. As always, it's a bit controversial, but that's what y'all know and love about Todd Widom. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you sit back and relax and enjoy my conversation with Coach Todd Widom. Well, hey, Todd, nice to see you. We've both recently had haircuts, so yeah.
Hey, Lisa.
I'm excited to chat. So I have to just say to our audience, we are recording this on the Thursday before the final weekend of the 2023 US Open. Coco Gauff is playing right now. We both stepped away. Well, one of us stepped away from our TVs to record this. The other of us is watching out of the corner of his eye. And will keep me updated surreptitiously as the match goes on. But I think we've got a cool topic tonight.
Yeah. To me, it's maybe the first time that I know of where we have an unbelievable crop of male and female American professionals. Super exciting. But on the other hand, we're having trouble sending our American kids to top colleges, right? I mean, it's out there that the foreign, student athletes are, have taken over, especially Division I college tennis on the male and female side.
Yeah. What's up with that, do you think?
Well, I have a lot to talk about tonight, Lisa.
Oh, shocking. Shocking. Todd has an opinion.
All right. And I've done my research as well, and I've witnessed many things since I started coaching in 2010. So for our viewers and listeners, the USTA, before they built that enormous facility in Orlando, before that, it was in Boca Raton.
Yeah.
Okay. And the USTA had a whole crop of unbelievable coaches. I'm talking about coaches that produced the world's best tennis players on the male and female side. There were teams of coaches put together, and the USTA,
and not just American coaches, they were from all over.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were Argentine coaches and all different types of coaches. There was a Swedish coach, I believe, on the women's side. So I mean, not just American coaches, right? You had great. Right. Actually, one coach that trained me on the tour, who produced Andy Roddick and Marty Fish, was one of those coaches as well. So, I mean, as I always say, right, whether it's on your show, Lisa, or maybe an Instagram or social media post, it's about who is training the child. First and foremost, parents love to speak about who their child is training with and their practice partners and who they're going to hit with and what is the UTR and blah, 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 blah. I want to know who is training that child.
Day in and day out. Not
every single day, multiple hours, every single day.
Yeah.
To me, that's first and foremost. So we go back to the USTA. Well, they bring in a whole crop of the top 14 and under, players in the country, right? And so I actually have a couple of boys that I was training at that time that were pretty darn good. So I used to bring them over for practice matches in Boca Raton at the USTA, and I was friendly with a whole bunch of these coaches, whether they coached me or maybe I competed against them on the tour and these types of things. So, I was witnessing what was going on, and they told me that this crop of American players that we have right now are going to be incredible. Well, was I believing that? You hear that every generation. This generation, that generation, right?
Well,
They're trying to be positive.
let's not forget, this was at the time where USTA was charged with producing the next Grand Slam champion, right? This was their
Absolutely.
mission. It was at the front of every conversation. We've got to find another slam champion. It's been too long. We're going to devote all of our resources to that.
Right. So, in my mind, and I would think the minds of, the head of player development at that time and the coaches, they saw what was happening in Canada, right? They also saw how Spain had developed unbelievable players. They did their whole research, the Argentines,
Sure.
all throughout the world, right? And what's the secret, right? How do we do it? How do we develop all these great players? How do we get a whole crop of American males and females to become professionals, and they feed off each other and they train and everything, and the Bolletary Academy, and how did he do it? And how did he bring in Agassi and Courier to start, and and have a whole generation of unbelievable professionals? How did they do it? So that was the model at that time that the USTA, I believe, was trying to copy. And they had done their research, and they had, like I said, some incredible pros. I mean, some of the best that you could find in the whole world, right?
And the
So,
model was take kids away from their homes, right? Take them away from their home coach, from their parents, put them up in dorms. So they all live together, they train together, and that's how we're going to make
yes,
this work.
yes. And also, these coaches were traveling all around the country if a player didn't relocate to Boca Raton to go help that particular player and coach. And from the research that I've done, almost every single coach in the country was absolutely open for that help.
Yeah.
Which is tremendous, right? If it was one of my students and one of these coaches came in and said, "Hey, Todd, I just want to look at one of your students, and we think they're a great prospect, and I respected that human being. They're coming in, and I want them to take a look at my player because I think that's what's best for them and their development, and another set of great eyes, and like I said, someone that I truly respect."
Right.
That's amazing. So that was Brandon Nakashima in California, Francis TFO in Maryland, Sebastian Corda. I mean, you can go on and on and on. So not only was it in Boca Raton where you had the full timers that were in the dorm and everything, but you also had coaches that were going out to these top prospects and monitoring them and help, coach them and develop them and, help the coaches, what do you need? How can I help you? All those things. That is the recipe for how these countries have succeeded and produced incredible tennis players. Plus, these 14-year-olds had an incredible team around them when they would travel to tournaments. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'd only have a physical trainer with them. Sometimes they'd have the trainer and the coach, right? So it all just depended on what these very knowledgeable coaches thought was the best at that time, for these particular, top 14 and under prospects.
Sure. And so the names that you've mentioned, you haven't mentioned any of the girls, but
right.
But of the boys that you mentioned, we're seeing incredible success on the tour.
So just so you know, the girls, at that time I was only training boys. Okay. So I was watching what was going on more on the boys side. But gotcha. I there were girls there. I saw Taylor Townsend there. Actually, I brought one of my girls to Taylor Townsend to play matches with her. But at that time, I was mostly training boys. Now I have boys and girls and a whole mix, and it changes all the time and all that kind of stuff. But at that time, I knew more of what was going on with the boys, sure. on that side. So two of the best players in the world that we see all the time is Tommy Paul and Riley Opelka. Mm-hmm. Two of the full-time dorm kids, right?
And they're my son's generation. Like they're, okay. 96, 97s.
Right. So, and there were plenty other, 14 and under prospects as well. And so, as I call it, those are the two that made it out alive to become world-class professionals, right? That we see on TV. Unfortunately, Riley's been hurt for a while and everything, and he's trying to come back. And I know he's training and everything. I think he's close to coming back. But, so those are the two that were, really on the male side that were really the highlights of, that time. In terms of, the training and the management and everything, I believe it was great. These kids had a great team around them. Now there's the living aspect, right? Not so easy, right? So what the USTA figured out at that time was, it's a whole different ballgame taking care of children. That didn't go so smooth. Right. And it took them a while to figure that out, right? Tennis, great. You have the great training and everything, but then there's taking care of teenage boys and girls, right? So,
and boys and girls together.
Yeah, let's not go there. Yeah. So that's a whole different animal when you're dealing with that. I've done it. I don't have a dorm. I have private homes. I know what is going on, and I can monitor that a lot easier than having a dorm, right? With my business that I run every single day. But so those two players, they blossomed into world class. I mean, Tommy Paul going to be top 10 in the world, I think, very soon. And Riley Opelka was a top 15 or top 20 player in the world. And then, he's been banged up a little bit with injuries, but
well, we had Taylor Fritz in there. We have
correct
Francis, as you mentioned, all doing incredibly well.
Taylor as well was another one that I believe, from what I know, was coming into camps and everything into Boca when he was about 15 or 16 years old. So all of these players were on the radar.
Yeah.
Right. All of them, whether they were there full time or not. And I remember the coaches that I was very good friends with and still good friends with. They said, this crop of players, they're special. And I was like, the USTA has been saying this forever. I mean, who are we kidding, right? But they were right. So, yeah.
So what's happened to the rest of the kids? Why are we having such a hard time with our juniors competing against players from all around the world for spots on college teams?
Sure. So when we go into amateur tennis now, like I said, I believe it always starts with the coaching. Okay. And the system that student or child is in every single day. What I can tell you is that it's not easy. I mean, the basis of my business is bringing up high performance players and sending them to great colleges or maybe a professional career. I know a whole bunch of buddies of mine that don't want to touch this type of business that I'm in. Okay. Maybe they become a college coach. Maybe they go into a country club job. But I'm telling you, if they really devoted their life, like I do every single day, to developing, high performance players, great colleges and everything, they're tremendous coaches. They're incredibly knowledgeable and everything, but they don't want that type of responsibility and everything that goes with it. Right. I mean, there's a lot. It's not just a lesson and go home. You're talking about a whole management of the player and the parents and the nutrition and the psychology and the college placement. I mean, you can go on and on and on, right? The physical fitness, I mean, everything, right? The
Not
nutrition.
to mention also keeping up with technological advances that are happening every single day. New information that's coming out to help coaches do their jobs more efficiently, more effectively. And the technology that is being developed every day, new stuff coming out. So not only are you, as the coach, expected to know how to teach, the forehand, the backhand, the tactical, the technical, the mental, the emotional, but also now keeping up with all of the advances in the other areas of tennis that are going to help your player reach their fullest potential.
Right. No, I agree.
Which is time consuming.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, when we go back to, developing, forget the pro side, great amateurs, right? There's a whole marketing and sales scheme going on, right?
Really?
You have a good player you promote them, you hope kids are going to come in, right? You want a lot of kids, right? Then you got to hire coaches
Yeah.
as well. So to find great coaches, it's about the staff, and like I said, who's coaching that individual. So that is very tough, and the management, and then there's money involved, and then do you trust that coach, right?
Yeah.
Is that coach blowing smoke up my butt, or are they telling me the truth? And right. So in the US, I think that Nick Bollettieri started the tennis academy, and everybody wants to have a tennis academy. I want a lot of kids running around. I want a whole bunch of courts filled with a whole bunch of kids. But where's the quality in the teaching?
Well, and it's like you and I did an episode a while back about these camps and academies that you can go and visit, and really understanding what is it that you're going to get when you take your child to one of these places. Do you want to go to, and for lack of a better example, a Bollettieri, where you're going to be on a court with 20 kids? You might see Nick Bollettieri for 5 minutes if you're lucky, but the likelihood is your kid's going to be working with another coach that you, as the parent, may or may not have any information about ahead of time. And meanwhile, you're spending thousands of dollars to be there. And depending on how long you stay, tens of thousands of dollars. And what are you getting for that? Versus being in a smaller setting that's more intimate, where you as the parent and the player know the coach one-on-one. You'll have knowledge of each other's personalities, of the way you do business, what the expectations are, what the goals are, what the work ethic is. And there's no shortcutting all of that if you want to reach the highest levels of the game.
Couldn't have said it any better. Right.
I mean, we've been talking about this for how long, Todd? And it's so frustrating when I talk to parents who are still stuck in situations where they thought they were getting one thing, because of all the great advertisement, the shiny, social media and whatever. And then they get there and it's actually something very different. Or the coach has done such a great job selling themselves, marketing themselves, but do they really have the knowledge and the work ethic to take your child where your child wants to go?
Right. And do they want to? Right. Do they really want to do that?
Right.
The next thing that has hurt America with their tennis is that everything that I previously spoke about with the USTA doesn't really exist anymore. Okay. So they've cut player development. All of those coaches are gone. They're not there anymore. They lost countless years of experienced coaches that have either resigned or been fired, from the USTA.
And was
So
that a result of the cuts with COVID?
yes, and also before that.
Okay.
So now you have what are called, their camps, right? They invite players to their camps. So what are the camps? Well, the kids hit balls with other kids and everything, but that's not what we're talking about with, high quality training and coaching. You're getting exposed to maybe a couple different players and everything and some peers, but
And the
that's not.
camps are typically either over a weekend,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
they're a week long if it's during the school break.
Yeah. I mean, so, what? Right. So, so now the USTA, they've cut budgets, right? They're not putting as much money into it. So all of those teams of coaches and all these amazing players that you're seeing on TV and what they came through and the coaches visiting them all throughout the country and everything, it's not really happening anymore.
So what is happening? Are we back to the private coaches being left to their own devices? Which, it's one of those things that I remember when USTA was coming in and cherry picking kids and bringing them down to Florida, there was all this uproar over what are they doing? How can they do this to the local coaches? There needs to be more support. And then things kind of changed a little bit and they started to bring the coaches with the players down to Florida. So it was the whole team would come down together. Now you're saying they've just kind of taken a hands-off approach altogether and the coaches are left to their own devices to figure out how to develop these kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, the player development has been, dismantled really. I mean, and these players were brought in as top 14 and under prospects, right? So from what the research I've done, now they're really trying to get the older kids that are produced and maybe try to help them, right? They're not going towards the younger ones anymore. That's maybe my job, to be doing that. I can tell you from my personal experience, right? And this was back, I turned pro after NCAAs of 2003. The USTA approached me because I was the highest ranked American on the ATP tour out of all the kids that came out of college, all the American players. And they did. They wanted to take me away from my coach, Pierre Arnold, and give me everything, money, management, and they take over. And I told them, no chance.
Yeah.
Now, that's not easy to do for a lot of families and everything, but I was so loyal to the people that had spent so many hours with me that would never in my mind, I would never consider that. I don't care what they would offer me. That's how close I was with my coaches. And I knew how much time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears they had put into me. Right. But for many people, it's very hard to turn that down. I mean, you're talking about a substantial amount of money, coaching, and maybe wild cards into big events and all those things. And then when I said no, it's like it's over. Right? Like, they're really not interested in whatever. Right. But
well, at that
was
time you were
chose.
either all in with them or no go.
Exactly. And so that's the decision that I made. It was a no-brainer for me. Right.
And so what's happening now? Because we're seeing players coming out of college, and I know, we're going to talk about Peyton Stearns a little bit, but players like Peyton, but even this year we had Fiona Crawley who, had a great US Open, but is planning to go back to college, or has at the time of this is probably already back on campus. And had to make this huge decision about whether to take her prize money at the US Open and turn pro or turn down all that money and go back to school. So now what's happening is USTA helping these players transition from college to pro, or are they being left to figure things out on their own? Do you know?
I'm not 100% sure about that, but I did speak to Peyton's mother maybe a month or two ago when she started asking me questions, about the tour. I mean, that was a young lady that lived with me.
Right.
Right. And
for those who don't know her, Peyton Stearns played at University of Texas. She won the NCAAs, right? She won the individual tournament. She played in the US Open this year. She got to the third round. Is that right? Fourth round. Had a great US Open and unsponsored. That was kind of the big joke on social media is she started a match in one brand and would go on the bathroom break between sets and come out in another brand of clothing because she didn't have a clothing sponsor. So go ahead. So you talked to Peyton's mom.
Yeah, we were just talking about the tour and what I thought and the management and the whole shebang, just talking with her mother, Denise, and everything. I had Peyton's brother living with me as well, Preston, who plays at Ohio State University.
Right.
So, I mean, Peyton, tremendous. I mean, from when she won NCAAs, a year ago, right? A little over a year ago. I mean, unbelievable ascent. Between myself and Pierre Arnold, we were, she lived with me for a while and training and, managing and then, helping her with the college placement as well. So she was when I look back on helping her out and everything, I've housed plenty of kids, right? This girl was very disciplined. She was very solid. She was very clean. She's very neat. She's very respectful, right?
How old was she
And
when she came to live with you?
I believe she was about 17, I believe,
Okay.
right?
So
When
right
she was
before
training us.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, so I mean, she was a pleasure to train. I mean, when we asked her to do something, she did it. When we were coaching her, she was very coachable. She was working hard. Was it easy for her to be in my system? It was very challenging for her. It was tough, right? And so, she also, really was playing more pro events at
Mm.
17 years old. When she came to me, she had already been, I believe it was about top 50 in the world in junior tennis, and she had played, the Grand Slams. But she was more into already playing futures, and then going to college and everything, and then turning professional when she felt like she was ready.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look back on that, and she also, she wrote me an incredible note, actually, which was super nice, and just a class act individual, saying, thank you so much. And when she
I love
when she won
that.
NCAAs and everything. And so that was,
Good
I mean,
parenting right there.
very good. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a direct result, of what's going on the
Yeah,
parenting side, right? And
for
so
sure.
when you look at these solid athletes, right, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So Peyton,
So
tremendous.
when you talk to her mom, what is she, what's going on with Peyton now that she is on the tour full time?
Well,
Is
sure. I
she
mean,
getting assistance from the federation, or
I'm
basically
not so
she's on her own?
sure. Yeah, I think she's, probably more on her own. They're juggling, there's financials, there's coaching, there's management, there's fitness, there's, the trainer, the better you get, she's probably going to be in the 30s or 40s in the world, the more money and the more management it's going to take to get that player to higher levels of tennis.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's a whole financial side to it, what to pay coaches and percentages and what's reasonable. And then there's, the types of tournaments to play, and the physical training that's needed, and the recovery and the rest and the
And
surfaces.
managing
And
the travel and
yeah, I mean,
managing
a lot of
food and
things.
all of that.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
offense to the parents that are listening, but many parents don't get this right. So, and even, and I'm talking on the amateur side, forget the professional
Sure.
side, right? I see stuff, and I see where kids are playing, and on all these things. Many times it's not correct, right? It's not the right path.
Well, I want to ask you about this because I thought this was interesting. And again, by the time this airs, this is kind of old news, but for now, we are still in the US Open. So it's applicable. There is a player, well, there are two players still. Well, I guess one of them lost today, but two players in the junior draw that are Americans who have not traveled around the world to play junior tournaments. They have stayed close to home. They've trained at home. They've played tournaments close to home, and they are having incredible junior careers. The male player, I'm not sure what his plans are after juniors. The female player is going to Stanford University. So when you talk about going to a top tennis program, it doesn't get much better than that on the women's side. And I want to just hold both these kids up and these families up as examples that it can be done.
I love this topic. I
I know
love
you
it.
do. I know you do.
Yes. And I can't tell you how much I enjoy this topic, because, like I said, so many parents and coaches get this wrong. And it hurts the kid. I can't tell you how much it hurts them, because it's the wrong management, the wrong
Message.
traveling and everything, and tournament play and tournament scheduling. It's not correct. Okay.
Right.
I actually had this discussion with a whole bunch of the students the other day, and they looked at me like, oh my goodness. I said, when I was training, right, and this is probably pretty similar to, say, a Ben Shelton or a Chris Eubanks. Okay. If I was going to go to a big national tournament, let's say an Easter Bowl,
Mhm.
I trained without playing a tennis tournament for months before that tournament. And maybe I played 1 or 2 warm-up tournaments to get ready. And all of the training was done in a very disciplined manner
Mhm.
based on what we're getting ready for. Okay.
So
That
you're saying point chasing isn't necessary?
okay.
Those
I
of
was
you
thinking,
listening to this, you can't see Todd's face right now, but
oh, you can't see my face. Okay, good. All right. Let me explain something to you. And I talk to Pierre about this all the time. Your child should not play in a tournament until you think, the coach thinks, that they are ready to do some great things in that tournament, do some damage. Okay. I didn't go to a tournament ever without thinking that, number one, I wasn't really ready and prepared. Number two, I didn't think I could go far in that tennis tournament. Never, never, ever, ever. Okay.
so this begs the question then, Todd. Is it important to play practice matches then?
All the time. All the time. The students in my arena
Don't
are playing
use
practice matches.
don't use tournaments for practice matches.
No.
Use practice matches for practice matches.
Tournaments are an examination of what needs to be done in your daily training.
Yeah.
Whether you got nervous or you double faulted too much or your forehand broke down, your backhand, you got tired, your physical fitness, whatever it is, that's how you manage a tennis career. Okay. The training is your homework. The tournament is the examination. I would train for months at a time, and I'd go to an Easter Bowl, and sometimes I'd lose first or second round.
Mm-hmm.
I failed, right? And then I go into the back draw and try not to, make the same mistakes and keep failing,
But
right?
when you say you would train to get ready, your training would include playing practice matches, would it not?
Of course. And the practice matches were more towards, gearing up to that tournament. So if I had, say, let's say I had a month to get ready for a big tennis tournament, maybe the first 2 weeks I didn't play 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next 2 weeks, after all of those things were really worked on, all those fundamentals and movements and, hitting the ball and, all these different things that we worked on, right? Then we started incorporating them into points and sets to really have that player peak for that particular event or events coming up. Okay. It drives me crazy when I see kids thrown around the world, thrown around the country, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then the parents, many times, all they know is my kid winning or losing?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know why. Okay. So, like I said, the management is critical, right? When you go to Ben Shelton, when you talk about Chris Eubanks, when you talk about me, we were never thrown around the country or
Right.
the world. It was all about development.
Yeah.
Always, that was number one. And it was about the training.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. I can't harp on it enough about how this is screwing up a lot of kids.
So getting back to the point of where are the American kids on the top college tennis teams, whether it's Division 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. Where are the American kids? Do you feel like kids from other countries are managing this development process more effectively and efficiently, not playing as many tournaments, but understanding the need for the training and then the practice matches and then gearing up toward the big events so that they maximize, their ability to perform?
Sure. Yes. I've had one of my students who's in college tennis currently, and he's been in Europe playing professional events. Actually, I've had two boys, right? in Europe playing professional events, but one I've been speaking to almost daily, and I think it's mind blowing what he's seeing out there.
Tell
Mind
us.
blowing.
Tell
Huh?
us. What's he seeing?
Just the society, and from the coaching to kids, just it's just a different world. They're at the club, they're playing tennis all day, it's just a part of their life, right? And then they, in the tournaments, the competitiveness, the intensity, the desire, all these things are on a different level, right?
Because that stuff has to be trained too, right?
Correct.
You have to train your competitive muscle. And you can't do that by being fed balls or by having private lessons all day long. The only way to train your competitive muscle is to compete. And you have to do that through practice matches so that you've got the freedom to work on things at the same time that you're developing that competitive muscle.
Yes. And not only that, I believe it's about the environment, right? And I try to explain this to the students that we're training on a daily basis. Whether I'm hitting with them in a lesson, or I'm jumping into maybe some of the groups and hitting with them, or whatever it is, when I look across the net, I want to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's a drill, anything, playing points, I don't care. But that was instilled at a very young age. We were brought up in a competitive environment that was tough and rigorous, and you couldn't survive unless you were tough. Mm-hmm. And that's what these kids are receiving in other countries. Understand that. Yeah. Okay. There is none of this soft, everybody's great, you're going to be the best, I love you, you did amazing today. I mean, that's not helping.
Right.
That might be helping getting the check from your parent, but that is not going to help your child get to what we're talking about. That is recreational tennis.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a very different mindset. It is not, it's one of those situations where, to a casual observer walking up and watching a training in, let's say, Spain or France or wherever, you would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the coaches are talking to the kids like that. Or, they're being way too hard on these kids. But it's done with love. It's done with respect. It's done with the understanding that in order to be respected, you have to respect the other person. So that respect is, it goes both ways. Both people have to earn it and exhibit it. These coaches, even though they seem so hard and harsh with the children and their tone of voice, or making them do it one more time until the kid gets it right, they're doing that because they see something in the child and want to bring that out in the child. And maybe it's something that the child doesn't recognize in themselves yet. Maybe it's something that the parent is unable to recognize, but these coaches recognize it, and they're not going to stop until they bring that out in the kid, if the kid is willing to put the work in, right? And it's tough to find people like that in this country because our culture doesn't support that.
Right. That what you're talking about right now are the best tennis coaches.
Yeah.
Understand what Lisa just said right now are the best tennis coaches that produce great tennis players.
And not just great tennis players.
Great people.
Great humans who have strong work ethic.
Correct.
Who are willing to be uncomfortable in order to achieve a goal.
Correct.
Right? I mean,
they're gonna handle, and then their tennis careers are gonna end, and they are gonna handle, tough things in their life, problem solving, tough bosses, whatever it is, they can get the job done. And these players, whether they're, great amateurs or professionals, they are successful human beings because of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
There,
And it is so tough to find that. And again, the culture in our country doesn't support that. It's very tough as a parent in our society to sit back and watch your child be driven outside their comfort zone. Our inclination is to jump in and rescue them, right? And we just have to have a shift in mindset.
Lisa, soft parents create soft kids. Okay. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you're dealing with coaches that are dealing with masses of kids, what we're talking about right now, the way society is, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because when money is the driving force, you can't have masses training them exactly what you're talking about. So what you're talking about right now, we did this today in the training, and obviously we do it a lot, but we made it so uncomfortable for the students and made them so accountable to their training. And you would be, surprised if someone was watching the training that's going on. It's very fair, extremely challenging. In fact, tomorrow I'm jumping in because it was that good, right? And I'll put some videos on Instagram and everything, right, of what's going on.
Good.
But you could see the look on the students' faces that they're so, just uncomfortable. And then when they get it, right, and they get it right, the sense of accomplishment is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you're like, this kid is getting better. This kid is learning. This kid is on the way up.
Right.
Without that, it's worthless.
Yeah.
And that is what kids, I believe, are not feeling, right? And this soft stuff, forget it. It doesn't work, right? And, to me, I'm like, this was like an unbelievable day. It was an incredible session of training. Every kid got it. Every kid got better. It was super uncomfortable. It was extremely tough. We had kids breaking down. We had kids getting pissed off. We had, all these emotions. But then when they got it, it was incredible for them. That, I believe, is great coaching.
And listen, I get it that that's not for everybody.
Nope.
Not every family wants to deal with that. Not every kid
Correct.
wants to deal with that. And that's okay. But if your child wants to achieve the highest level in the sport, this is what it takes to get there. And we just need to be real about this and honest about it.
That's 100% what it is, right? There's no other way of getting around it. In my opinion, what I'm telling the kids is that they need to get on my level.
Yeah. And it's not being abusive. It's not being
not at
cruel,
all.
right? Nope. You're not mean. You're not, a total jerk, but you're pushing them because you see something in them that they don't know they have. And you want to show that to them. And the only way to get kids to see it a lot of the time, and maybe the majority of the time, I'm not a coach, so I can't speak authoritatively on this, but sometimes you have to push them into the most uncomfortable situation to challenge them to raise their level and understand that they have what it takes to get there.
Correct. But with masses of kids, it's not possible.
No.
So this is why, right, I don't run a mass tennis academy.
Right.
Okay, because the way that I want to get things done, or Pierre or my other coaches, does not work with masses of kids. But if you want results, if you want to see how far your child can take their tennis, this is what you need to be looking for.
Yeah.
There's no other way.
And this is why you have a screening process before kids come down, right? I mean, these are the conversations that happen before somebody travels down to Florida to work with you.
I tell them the God's honest truth. This arena is not for everyone. It's extremely rigorous. if your child is not cut out for that, there's other places in
Or
Florida.
if they don't want it. I mean,
100%.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it. It's just not something we do.
Right. 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 Huh. All right, Todd, you got to give me a score check. Are you watching the Coco match still?
Yeah, you know what actually happened? It's 6-4, 1-love. And I think something happened
Oh,
in the stands. I don't know if someone got sick, but there was a huge pause in the match.
interesting.
So yeah, I don't know. So yeah, this match just got back on, and then you saw
Okay.
them warming up and everything. I don't know if someone got
Okay.
sick in the crowd or something. I'm not
There
sure
have
what
been a
happened.
couple incidents this year. I think the heat, and then people get happy with their honey deuces and forget to drink water. And
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah, 6-4, 1-love for
Okay.
Miss Goff, who grew up 30 minutes from where I live. Yeah, so pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
What
yeah.
you want to talk about a girl who is an unbelievable competitor
Yeah.
and an incredible athlete and tough as nails? That girl.
Yeah. And parents who support that and understand what
Correct.
it takes because they're
Correct.
athletes too.
And I've had a couple of my friends actually train her.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that girl, but I've seen her, for a whole bunch of years now, and
Yeah.
so strong,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and physically a tremendous athlete, but
Right.
mentally so special.
And a kind person. So this
Yeah, yeah, she
is,
is. I
she's the
don't
whole
know.
package.
I don't know her personally, but when I listen to the interviews, I'm like, man, this girl is so with it. She's got it. Like, just yeah,
Yeah.
very, very, very good, very good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So
What else? Anything else we need to cover before we wrap it up?
no, so I think I mean, going back to the American players and the player development, these are, I believe, some of the real reasons as why this is a very weird and bizarre time in
Mm-hmm.
American tennis, because to produce a professional player is extremely difficult. And we have a whole crop of males and females that are really incredible. I mean, it's very, very special times. But then on the amateur side, what's going on?
Yeah.
Right. So hopefully, I think these were excellent topics to
Yeah.
speak about. I think the viewers will really appreciate this.
I hope
So
so. I hope so. And I think it'll be interesting to kind of check back in on this topic maybe in 6 months or so and see what
sure.
the fallout is from the American success at the US Open. See what's happening on the college scene, once the dual match season starts after the first of the year. And, let's keep touching base on this one because I think it's going to be an interesting trend to kind of watch and see how it plays out.
I think so. I think that's great. And what I'm thinking about now as I watch Coco Golf just hit a backhand winner. Great shot. But you know, maybe we get Pierre on the podcast again and we start
Yeah.
talking about how we're training, our students in that very tough, loving manner, right? And parents are paying many times for clinics and tennis lessons and wondering why the results aren't coming.
Mm.
I think we should talk about that topic, because if they were sitting and watching, our training sessions, they would understand, I think, a little bit more about, the development and what the kids need and how to get them more mentally tough and feel like they've really accomplished things each and every day at their training.
I love that. I love that. We'll definitely do that. And I always love talking to Pierre.
Yeah. Well, there aren't many guys in the world that have had his results. So,
Yeah.
he knows a couple things about tennis.
He's a gem. He's a gem. Well, Todd, thank
Yeah.
you. I will let you get back to your family because it's probably bedtime for the boys there. But thanks for doing
Yeah.
this, and always a pleasure chatting with you. And to my audience, thank you for tuning in. And we'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces.